Hello, thanks for coming out. My name's JoJo. Thanks for clicking on another one of my essays. I'm going to do my quick little disclaimer that I do in front of every one of these videos, and that is, if you are not someone who already believes in trans rights, then you should not be watching this video. This is only for the people who want to know about June Egbert's origins. So if you're looking for sort of an argument about whether June is canon or not, then please take it somewhere else. So, June Egbert, the trans narrative. By now, in August 2020, trans June is a common thread. In fact, there are many people who feel very protective of this character, enough to spawn the playful moniker of Junebugger. People who are insistent about trans June's canonicity, enough to bug people about it. But many are confused by June Egbert. After all, June doesn't appear in any official works, such as Homestuck, Pester Quest, or even Homestuck 2 in the epilogues. So many wonder, where did June come from? The answer is simple, yet complicated.
Back here again, can't get enough. JoJo explains some interesting stuff.
The first instance of widely accepted June content was on, June 21st, 2019, from a Twitter user known as Trace Excalibur. Trace made a short dialogue fic of John and Rose discussing gender issues. Inserted here. Hey, Rose.
Yes, John.
There's something I've been wondering about. See, I've been having these, visions of other me's.
Ah, the bleeding effect of the ultimate self has finally reached you. You'd like my assistance in navigating your newfound knowledge without going insane. I can guide you to reaching a stable equilibrium.
No, I'm handling it pretty well. It's kind of easy to turn on and off.
Of course. You would find it to be so easy, wouldn't you? What's the problem, then?
It's just that there's this weird thing happening where, some of the me's I'm seeing are girls. How does that even happen? Are there, alternative timelines where the ectobiology went differently? Wild, right? Anyway, something about it keeps nagging at me, and I thought maybe I'd see if you had any thoughts about it, as our resident expert on that kind of stuff.
John, Roxy literally hosted a coming-out party last weekend. You were there. You listened to the whole speech.
Yeah, but I don't see how their gender party has anything to do with... Oh my god. Oh my god.
Would you like a bottle to store this revelation in for another 5 or so years? Or should I call Roxy and let them know not to put away the party decorations just yet?
People gave this reading particular weight because Trace was one of the writers on Pester Quest, also contributing to the Friend Sim. The original tweet was not particularly far-reaching, with only 85 retweets, but it was commented on by many prominent fandom figures such as Nelchromancer, another Homestuck collaborator, and retweeted by Rads, aka Hulknaps, and it spawned many fics and fan arts of its own. Essentially, this was the post that opened the June Egbert floodgates. Soon, fics were made, and the Homestuck was scoured for details that could allude to June's transness. For some time, there was even debate about her name, but June was settled on because of one of June's interactions with Vriska, when she made his name with a long O. Soon, Aisha and Hussey themselves boarded the June train. Aisha posted the following 5 days after the original June post on Twitter, quote, "Andrew and I were talking about June Egbert, and he pointed out to me that she's been with us all along," with a photo of a sprite of John with long hair from an old Homestuck game. 2 months later, on an episode of the Perfectly Generic podcast on August 3rd, Aisha also commentated on June.
John didn't think about Dave being bi for more than 5 seconds because it would have prompted some very confusing questions for him, right?
I mean, there's the moment where John thinks about every conversation they've ever had and is like, oh boy.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is John is constantly running from self-introspection, right? Is constantly running from introspection. And what does that make you think maybe John might be? Maybe trans? I don't know.
I mean, Candy's an extremely trans narrative. This feeling of oh, something's wrong and I don't know what it is. But it has to do with me.
It must just be canon.
Yeah.
They must be the meta-narrative. Yeah,
And
I thought it was the meta-narrative at 17 too, buddy.
The only headcanon I've ever seen Andrew get excited about is June Egbert. Like, he's the one who sent me. He was like, "Oh, June Egbert, if you look at this like Easter egg, the Easter egg thing where it's like somebody drew John as the Vriska sprite."
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, look, she's been here the whole time."
Yeah.
And he like would just text me at like midnight being like, "Oh, I had a thought about June
He
Egbert."
does do that.
I was like, he's so excited about it.
He does do that. Sometimes
Yeah.
he messages me about clown. Yeah.
So, the stage was set. Someone made a popular Homestuck headcanon, and it reached the ears of Aisha and Andrew. But this is hardly canonicity, is it? It's a lovely headcanon, but still, why are people so insistent on its canonical nature? To answer that question, I'll have to get into something that's a little less simple. First, let's talk about Toblerones. Toblerones are a segmented chocolate bar created in Switzerland and an apparent favorite of Andrew Hussey, dating back to early Homestuck. A photo of Hussey in front of a cave holding a Toblerone is an old piece of Homestuck lore. Toblerones are a long-time Homestuck joke as well. For instance, in early Homestuck, John finds an ad for Toblerone and places it back into the fire. Incidentally, some people take this as one of the trans little breadcrumbs. On August 25th, Hussey began what became known as the Toblerone Hunt. He posted several pictures. First, a box of Toblerones, which were signed by him and numbered, then the place where he hid them, along with a Google Maps indicator. No instructions were given except this cryptic geocaching image, as well as the hashtags eBoy, Hussey, Toblerone, and Cave. But Jojo, you cry at your screen, what do Toblerones have to do with June Egbert? Well, patient viewer, I will tell you. The very same day, August 25th, 2019, Twitter user placeholder for ABN found the treasure. Placeholder for ABN later posted a photograph of himself with the Toblerones and made the declaration, "Thank you all. For proving myself both conscientious and invested, I declare June Egbert real, the direction of the will of the fans. At eBoy Hussey, take note." Unfortunately, eBoy Hussey was not actually the Twitter handle of Andrew Hussey, but it did catch the attention of the real Andrew Hussey, who replied, "You were the first to find my treasure, and so it will be done." This tweet exploded. The already popular headcanon now had authorial approval. Soon on Twitter, people began to post using the hashtag JuneEgbertRealParty and outpouring their love into the character. Since then, people have been very staunch about June Egbert's nature as a trans woman, specifically in canon. But a year later, even with continued updates from HS2, June Egbert is nowhere to be found. This has left many to become disenfranchised with June. It's nearly the 1-year anniversary of the June Egbert tweets, and still no canon material has been published with this character taking the name June. Some people have drawn comparisons with J.K. Rowling, equating Hussey's transing of his character after the fact to J.K. Rowling's now infamous tweets about Dumbledore being gay. They're not quite the same, as J.K. insisted she knew all along, whereas Hussey latched onto a new headcanon after the fact. They are similar in that their character doesn't actually feature in the story as the identity they are ascribed, even more prominently in Homestuck 2's case, as it is still updating. The main difference is that presently Homestuck 2 is not finished. Perhaps soon they will show us June Egbert. They have, after all, been unafraid to show us non-binary Roxy and Callie, and there have been hints about June, such as the very fashionable cropped top John wears when he reunites with Vriska. Basically, the question of canonicity is more complicated than people give it credit for. It's hard to say what they're going for in Homestuck 2, and the character doesn't exist in Homestuck 1, so an argument could be made that she is not canon. However, people who advocate for June online strongly are doing so because they're looking for representation in their favorite webcomic. Basically, arguments about this character are irrelevant. If you like John as he appears in the comic, that's fine. He's in the comic. And if you love June Egbert, as I do, then go for it. What we should avoid is dunking on people who adhere to a certain headcanon, especially one that deals with June as a member of a marginalized group. I, for one, eagerly await the day that June Egbert finally looks into the camera and tells us, once and for all, I am a trans woman. Once again, thanks for listening. This was an unprecedented research essay, and I'd like to thank my followers on Discord for helping me dig everything up. If you're new here, please subscribe. I have lots more Homestuck essays. And if you haven't yet, follow my Twitter at Homestuck, at twitter.com/funkmclovin. I've said Homestuck so many times, I guess it just carried over. If you're thirsty for more lore, check out the Vrisk Omnibus, a feature-length video on Vriska's circuits. And if you like the music used in this video, it's available in the description. Thanks for coming out, and once again, just so everyone knows, trans rights.